It happened in the dead of night, something unimaginable after 800 years. Rome, the eternal city, was broken open by foreign invaders. Just before sunrise on August 24th, 410 AD, the gates of Rome swung wide, not to the triumphant armies of a Roman emperor, but to Alaric and his Visigothic warriors. How did this happen? For centuries, Rome had been the unshakable heart of a vast empire. Barbarian invasions were stories from distant frontiers, not a fear whispering through marble streets. But by the early 400s, everything in the empire was changing. Weak leaders, constant civil wars, and the endless drain of defending a crumbling border left Rome dangerously exposed. The new enemy? Not Persians or Carthaginians, but a band of Germanic outsiders, refugees turned raiders, led by one of the most famous figures in all late Roman history, Alaric the Goth. Alaric was once a Roman ally, a foederatus. He fought for Rome, learned Latin ways, but promises of land and payment were broken. And so, the Visigoths turned from Rome's defenders to its worst nightmare. In 408, Alaric and his thousands camped outside the city, demanding tribute. When negotiations broke down, a siege began, strangling the population with hunger and disease. Inside, panic grew as the supply lines snapped. There had never been a siege like this in living memory. Yet, the Roman government squabbled and stalled. The Western Emperor, Honorius, was far away in Ravenna, safe behind marshes and fortifications. He sent vague orders, empty offers. The people's cries went unanswered. At last, the city's leaders paid a ransom. Gold, silver, silks, even pepper, all loaded onto carts and poured into Visigoth hands. For a while, the siege lifted. But peace was short-lived. Negotiations fell apart. Alaric's demands for a better deal, land in Italy for his people, were denied one final time. So, on that August night in 410, something almost no one thought possible came to pass. Slaves within the city betrayed their masters, opening Rome's Salarian gate to the waiting Visigoth army. For 3 days, Romans awoke to terror. Streets became battlefields, churches and temples, bursts of desperate prayer. Almost nothing was sacred, though some accounts say Alaric told his men to spare churches, where some citizens fled. The destruction was brutal, but not total. Some iconic sites, like St. Peter's Basilica, offered a thin sanctuary. But treasures, artworks, and ancient relics, all were plundered. The memory of Roman invincibility shattered. News spread fast, carried on frightened tongues. St. Jerome, in far-off Bethlehem, wrote, "If Rome can perish, what is safe?" Even St. Augustine, north in Hippo, asked whether the old gods had abandoned the city, or whether the old idea of Rome itself was fading from history. Outside the city, refugees staggered down the roads. The symbol of the world's greatest empire was now a ghost city, shorn of wealth and certainty. But why did this sack cause such horror across the ancient world? Rome was more than a capital. It was a symbol of order, civilization, and the gods' favor. Its walls had not fallen to a foreign enemy in almost 8 centuries. Even when emperors moved their courts to Milan or Ravenna or far-off Constantinople, Rome was still Rome. Its fall wasn't just about burnt houses or looted gold. It marked the shattering of a worldview, a primordial earthquake in the Roman soul. To many, it felt like the end of all things. Yet, the city was not completely destroyed. Alaric's sack was violent, but also strangely measured, at least compared to later invaders. Still, its echoes transformed the empire. This sack revealed that Rome itself could be beaten, that emperors could no longer guarantee the city's safety, that barbarian warlords were now power brokers, not merely subjects. It also forced a great reckoning. Who, precisely, belonged in this new world? The line between Roman and barbarian was suddenly as thin as a turned cloak. For generations to come, poets and priests, generals and slaves would ask, why did Rome fall? Many blamed the city's abandonment of old pagan gods. Others said it was Christian compassion that delayed Alaric's slaughter, since churches became sacred ground. Ironically, Alaric himself died just months later, on the road south, reportedly buried with his treasures under a diverted river. His people, once Rome's foe, would eventually settle inside the empire's own borders. Some would serve as generals and even kings. And what of the city? Rome rebuilt. Life crept back. Its population thinned, its skyline scarred by fire and theft. But the city endured. But the world had changed. The sack of 410 taught everyone from senators to slaves that the barbarians were no longer at the gates. They were inside. Ravenna became the new political heart of the West. The Roman Empire still had decades left, but its age of unstoppable power was over. In a strange twist, the memory of the sack of Rome echoed throughout the centuries. Even people who never saw its smoking ruins would remember it as the moment the ancient world cracked open. Imagine waking to a world where the impossible had happened, where the stories of old heroes, of Scipio, Caesar, and Augustus, were now just shadows, and you had to find your place in the ruins. The sack of Rome in 410 was not only an event, it was a symbol. It signaled to the whole Roman world and to everyone who watched from the outside that history moves on. Even the greatest empires are not immortal. And yet, even as Rome burned, the city's legend only grew, inspiring both terror and awe, even after the flames were out. Why does the fall of cities haunt us so deeply? Perhaps because we all build walls, literal or not, believing they will last forever. But history reminds us, the walls always fall, sooner or later. Could another Rome ever rise from the ashes? Or was this the beginning of something altogether new? Something no one, not even Alaric, could imagine. The story of the Roman Empire continues,